Today, we're going to talk about track types inside Cubase. Let's go.
Watch me take control.
Before we get started, just get familiar with your Cubase, how it looks. Mine looks like this. I'm working on Cubase Pro 12, and this is how it looks. Normally, when you open a project, you will get this, the input and output channels, and that's the stereo out track, but we're not going to touch this one today. All your tracks go here to the left, and this area right here is where you actually record audio or whatever it is. There are two ways to create new tracks, and the first one is going up here to this plus button right there. There's also a little window that says Add Track T, and we're going to touch on that. But first, we're going to click on this, and this is what you get, this little window right here, where you can create every possible track inside Cubase. And there are even more tracks down here. If you click on that, you're going to get all these type of tracks. Today, we're only going to focus on the first four right here: audio, instrument, sampler, and MIDI. And I'm going to show you how I use those. The next step is going here to keep dialog open, and I click on it because I don't want this window to close as soon as I create a track. On your keyboard, if you press the letter T, you're gonna get that window again. T for track. It's easy to remember. So there you go. It's a quick hack. And then you can go here, keep dialog open. And once you create a audio track, you can create as many as you want. This is not gonna go anywhere. And it's a convenient way to create multiple tracks with this window open all the time. So audio tracks are the main track that you're gonna create if you want to record music. If you're doing anything in audio, pretty much audio tracks is the way to go if you have mic inputs. So you click on it, and then you have a series of parameters here. The input, which is actually where you're gonna select the microphone that you're gonna be using, and the configuration. This one, you need to select mono or stereo or any of the other combinations down here. Once you select that, you go to audio outputs, and you select, of course, the one that is gonna carry that sound to your speakers. And that's, in this case, stereo out. I'm gonna put a name to it. I'm gonna put box. And right here, there's a count. So how many tracks do you want for these vocals? Now, before I move on, I'm going to create one. I want you to see this. This little icon right here is going to show you in what configuration that track is. Right now, it's in stereo. If you're recording voices in stereo, you better know what you're doing, because usually you record voices in mono. And that's why I'm going to delete that and create one or three in this case in mono. So I'm going to rename it box. I'm going to put here 3, add track, and now I have 3 vocal tracks in mono, as you can see here. Now, those tracks are audio tracks. I can immediately record on them. As soon as you see this line up in red, you know that you're enabled for recording. If you see it like this, you're not enabled to record, so you're not going to be able to record. So make sure that you enable that if you want to record audio on those tracks, okay? The next type of track is the instrument track. As you can see, I can select the instrument already that I'm going to use. Let's say I want to use laps for this one. And the stereo out is going to be my output. And I'm going to put a name to it. I'm going to put laps. And I want to create a couple instrument tracks. And as you can see here, that opened the instrument, and I have 2 instances of laps right here. If you don't want to select an instrument, just pick the no VST instrument, and then you can create empty tracks for instruments. And it's going to look like this. It's going to look like those right there. I'm going to put them on the bottom right there. Instrument track 1, 2, 3, but they don't have any instrument added. So you would have to go to the right side where your VST instruments are and select and pick, for example, laps. I'm going to drag and drop 3 copies to each one of them. And now those instrument tracks are not empty anymore, but they do contain a VST instrument, as you can see here. The next track I have here is the sampler track. This one is pretty cool, guys. I use it all the time. I'm gonna put here sampler. You can notice on the bottom right here that it says drop audio sample or MIDI parts here. And I'm gonna do just that. I'm gonna select an audio sample. Let's select this percussion. Let's drop it in there. You can see the audio right there. You can also manipulate this audio and chop it up and do a bunch of stuff with this. I have a video talking about the sampler on my channel, so go ahead and check that out. I'm not gonna go in depth into that, but that's how you do it. So let's talk about MIDI tracks. MIDI tracks, I like to use them in tandem with instruments. One of the quickest way to show you this is, for example, an instrument track, in this case, laps. Let's say I want to create a MIDI track. I can go ahead and say double click, and it's gonna create those MIDI tracks super, super easy. Or you can just go here to this menu, MIDI track, and add a track, whatever feels right for you, whatever is quickest for you. And in this case, I'm going to pick the instrument right here and gonna make sure that on the inspector, I see the channel that that instrument is actually playing. That instrument is using channel 1. So I want to put that MIDI track to channel 1, okay? I know that MIDI, it's routed to that specific channel, okay? So now when I play that MIDI, if I add another instrument and something like arcade, because this is a multi-sample instrument, VST, where you have a bunch of keys right here, you can then create, let's say, arcade, 5 MIDI tracks, as you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what I'm going to do is select arcade right there and select number 2 right here as a channel, because on number 1 I have laps. So arcade is on number 2 right here on the inspector. And I can then route all these MIDI tracks to number 2, number 2. Now, all of those MIDI tracks are gonna play right from this VST instrument, really. And then you can create variations. So for example, this one right here, I wanna use that. For this one, I wanna use that one. And for this, and you get the idea. You record the MIDI on those, and once you render that MIDI, it's gonna grab the sound from arcade, from the original instrument, and you won't have to create 5 VST instruments just to use one instrument which has all those sounds. I like to separate them like that because once I render them in audio, I know exactly what I have, and I like to have everything separated for the mix. Is the way I like to work. You feel free to do whatever you want on that side, but that's how I like to use my MIDI tracks. And please don't miss next week's video, because I'm going to be talking about the other tracks, the group track, effect track, VCA, the marker track, the ruler track, and the folder track. All of those we're gonna touch on next week's video. So hit like, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss that video, and see you in the next one, guys. Bye-bye.